A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir la'inir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Welcome to the community conversation. This is a hujjat initiative. In these regular conversations with individuals, we will explore their struggle, achievements, courage and disappointment that shaped and guided their faith, family and community. Today, we have with us a past president of London Jamaat, Stanmore, who served as Secretary General of the Council of European Jamaats, was a founder member of JIBA and its first treasurer as well as of JIBA Europe. He is Alhaj Shabbirbhai Mamdani. Welcome, Shabbir.
Thank you, Zitanbhai.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Shabbir was born in Bukoba, Tanzania, where he completed his early education before going to Kampala, Uganda, to finish his secondary education. Before he could sit his O-levels, the Asians in Uganda were expelled, which took him to Mombasa. Kenya, where he completed his O-levels and A-levels before coming to UK to pursue accountancy. He qualified as a chartered accountant in 1984 and later on set up his accountancy practice, Adams Moor House, which he is at today. He became Secretary General of the Council of European Jamaats in 1992-1993. At around the same time, JIBA was formed and he was a founder member, the first treasurer and member of the constitution team of JIBA International and JIBA Europe. He became the Vice President of London Jamaat in 2003 and held that position for 4 years. After a few years away from Jamaat politics, he returned to London Jamaat as president in 2012. He writes in his CV that since the end of his term in 2013, he stayed away from Jamaat's politics, concentrating more on secular politics in the UK's Conservative Party. He is currently the treasurer of Ruislip, Pinner and Northwood Conservative Association, a post he has held for the last 5 years. Mohammed Bhai, thank you for coming and sharing your life journey with us. Now, one thing is very interesting from your CV. You are now concentrating on secular politics. Now, this is very interesting. Talk to us why you sort of left the community politics and went into secular politics.
I haven't left the community politics. It's just that I have taken a back stage on community politics. And as far as the secular politics is concerned, it's just that I felt that this country has given us so much in terms of our well-being, etc. And it was time that we should put something back into the country and into the community. And my views are very much similar to the Conservative Party, which I formed when I was in the socialist Tanzania at a very early age, and I'll tell you about that in a later stage. So I joined the Conservative. In fact, I was a member of the Conservative Party for a very long time, but I didn't take any active role. So once I was free from Jamaat duties, I joined the Conservative Party again. And for my sins, I was elected as the treasurer. And every year I've been sort of being re-elected for 5 years because no one else is willing to do the job.
All right, okay. Talk to us about, in Conservative Party, in your years since you joined and now becoming the treasurer, has there views of non-white citizens of this country joining the Conservative? On reflection, how did you see a change or there was no change?
Well, I've been there since, in official capacity for the last 5 years. But I was a member prior to that. I think things had started changing from 2010 when the first Conservative government came back into power after the Labour government. And David Cameron did a lot of things to assimilate the non-white communities. I mean, today we have a Hindu prime minister.
Yes.
Saeed Awarsi was the first Muslim deputy chairman of the Conservative Party. Saeed Javid is another Muslim who was chancellor and health secretary at one stage. So it has become very inclusive since 2010. Prior to 2010, yes, I could see, I mean, your question is quite valid, that there were certain aspects which did not welcome the non-white community. But
it
now
felt like that, yeah.
But now it's very much integrated.
Yeah.
If you see our meetings, especially in Harrow, Northwood and Pina, where a large population, a Hindu population, at times you would think that you are in Bombay because you don't have many white people attending meetings. It's all the Hindus and Muslims who are attending the meetings. So yes, it has changed.
Oh yeah, I have a question. Now today there is going to be is it by-election this Thursday?
Thursday, yeah.
So do you think your party will win, or?
We hope we will.
But there is a local issue going on, isn't there?
Yes.
Or one of this...
I think the
diesel thing.
Yeah, we have what we call midterm blues. We have problems,
right.
The economy coming out of the pandemic, Brexit, etc. So we have a lot of problems there. But I believe that the Conservative Party is the best party to career through these problems with our policies, and eventually we'll come flying at the other end. In the meantime, of course, we have problems. We hope that we will hold at least the Uxbridge constituency, which is Boris Johnson's past constituency. And I think the one shining light in our strategy is the ULEZ problem, which has become very unpopular.
That's right, yeah.
And I think that's
a very local issue, isn't it?
It is a local issue, but we have converted it into a national issue now.
Oh.
And the campaign goes that if you don't support, if you support Labour, this is what will happen to the rest of the country. So you better stop it here.
Right.
And I think that may carry weight. So if we do manage to hold the Uxbridge seat, it will be because of ULEZ, not because of national politics. We are 20 points behind in national politics.
Would you suggest to the community youth to enter into or join whatever the parties, the national parties, there are Labour, Conservative, Liberal and others, to join and sort of push forward their own thought processes within the forums available?
Yes, I think, I'm surprised that we haven't already done so. Other communities have, especially the Hindu community. They have got a very large representation, both in local and national politics. When I look around, I see most of the people who attend our meetings are Hindus and other communities, other non-white communities, very few Muslims. So it is overdue, and I think we should engage in secular politics. But you have to bear in mind that you may have your own views. You cannot impose your views because there is a majority view. And what you have to do is engage and make people more educated as to what you stand for. Gradually, over a period of time, they will come to accept, but it's not going to be instant. So you have to be prepared for the long run.
And I have a follow-up question as well. I mean, it just came to my mind. I mean, what is happening in Modi's India, particularly regarding the Muslim issue there? Do you feel that in the UK, the Hindu-Muslim relationships are sort of deteriorating, or they are just pragmatic at the moment? Or they are close?
I think there is a section of the community, I won't say the entire Hindu community, there are sections of the Hindu community who are very much aligned to the Modi way of thinking.
Right.
And they do cause a problem for us. But I would say they are not in the majority. They are in the minority, especially, I believe, there are recent immigrants to this country who have brought their own sort of policies here.
Right.
I mean, if you look at the Leicester politics, they were created by recent immigrants. They were not indigenous people who have settled here since 1972. They weren't involved in this.
Right.
Because if you remember, back in East Africa, we used to live side by side with all communities. We didn't have any problems. And the communities in Leicester have continued to do so. It's only the new immigrants who have come from India and Pakistan, of course. And obviously they have got a different view of how things should be, and they pose a problem to us. But I think the majority are still law-abiding, and they understand that, we have to live together.
And the relationship between Hindus and Muslims in those areas where you feel it's almost like Bombay and Karachi and all that. So in this country?
Yes.
In the pockets or areas where Hindu-Muslims are quite in majority.
Yes.
Do you feel that the relationship will continue to be in a sort of good terms?
Yes, I think so. I think people, especially people from East Africa who have made their home here, they are sort of used to living with other communities, and they do not have a problem. The problem we have is the recent migration. And if that continues, then I can see we will have a problem in the future.
Right.
But as far as our own communities from East Africa are concerned, they're quite suave in believing that we have to live with each other. There's no point in bringing sort of subcontinent politics here. I mean, what happened in 1947 is gone and done and dusted. We are living in this country, and we have to sort of live with other
forward now, move on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, thank you very much for that. Your explanation on how you see things developing.
Yes.
So let's go back to your childhood now. I mean, as a Mamdani, I always thought that you would say I was born in Moshi. Yes. Because I always felt that Mamdani equals Moshi. But you were born in Bukoba.
I was born in Bukoba. My father was born in Bukoba.
Right.
Sort of, we had a different journey. My father had a different journey from mine, as it happens, because my father was a banker in Bukoba. But before that, so he was a banker in Bukoba. And of course, after the banks were nationalized in Tanzania, there was one rule that no senior officer can remain in one place for more than 2 years.
Okay.
So he was regularly transferred to different places. So from Bukoba, he moved to Kigoma, where he spent 2 years.
Right.
And from Kigoma, he moved to Mwanza, where he spent a few years again. And from Mwanza, he moved to Moshi, where he left the bank and started his own sweets manufacturing business. Fortunately, unfortunately, I did not join him in that journey because he was of the opinion that if I moved with him, my education would be interrupted.
Right.
So I stayed with my grandparents in Bukoba, whilst he was going all over the place.
So who are your grandparents then?
Alhaj Shabbirbhai Mamdani.
All right, okay.
So I grew up with my grandparents, not with my parents. My younger brother, he was always with my parents. So he has lived in Kigoma, Mwanza, Moshi everywhere. I always stayed with my grandparents until I was, I think, I was about 12 or 13 when I moved to Kampala.
Right.
But no, I didn't move with my father. So when you speak of Mamdani and Moshi, that's my father who moved to Moshi and then where he spent a lot of time in Moshi.
Right, okay.
But I haven't spent
that is how I always related it. So then your primary education presumably was in Bukoba?
It was in Bukoba, and part of the secondary education was in Bukoba up until what we used to call Form 1 and 2, Form 2.
Right.
And then the Cambridge exams were abolished in Tanzania, as you will probably recall.
Right, yeah.
And we, of colonial mindset, we thought we want to go to London to study. So these East African certificates.
Did you have that mindset from before, that I want to go to London?
Oh, yes, really? We had. And
what age?
From primary school. Because
Really?
I used to see, because there's something happened in Bukoba. A lot of our youngsters went to India to study.
Right.
And most came back with BCom degrees. Very few did anything other than sort of BCom degrees, and that didn't appeal to me. So I said, if I'm going to go for further studies, it'll have to be in the West. But there's also a story there. So from Kampala, after the exams were abolished, I went to Kampala to stay with my uncle.
Who is your uncle?
Pyarali Mamdani.
Right, okay.
And I went to Aga Khan High School in Kampala, where, as it happens, Aga Khan was doing a visit, and I met him there in Kampala.
What year was that?
It's 1971.
All right.
No, sorry, 72.
72. So you met him there?
Yes,
right.
He came to our school, and I met him there. But
did you speak to him?
Yes. Well, speak to when you are here. What do you do? Just says, Yali Madad. That's all we were told to say. Nothing more.
Really? Okay.
But 3 months before I was supposed to sit my O-level exams, so there was obviously the Asian exodus happened, and we were kicked out. So then
you were there?
I was in Kampala.
So can you recall what was your experience like during that time?
Well, I'll tell you my personal experience, which is quite hair-raising. Around that time, there was a lot of movement. People were leaving the country. Others were packing their stuff to leave the country, etc. And a lot of adult men were spending time at either UK High Commission or Canadian High Commission, etc.
To get a visa.
To get a visa, to go somewhere.
Right.
Because a lot of them were Ugandan citizens. They didn't know where they were going. And obviously what they did was they left women at home. And one afternoon, I was resting.
How old were you then?
I was about 16, I think.
Right.
Yeah. I was resting, and then my aunt, with whom I was staying, she woke me up and she says, the army people have come next door, Hindus, by the way, and there are only ladies there.
Yeah.
You are the only man here. Can you just go and see that, they are not harmed? Okay. So the army, I went there, the army people were there. They said, we have information that you are leaving the country and you're taking some foreign currencies with you, and we want to open all these crates that you have already packed up. And I tried to convince them, look, these are only the ladies, the men are going to British High Commission for their visas, can you come back later? I said, no, open it. So I told the ladies, I said, please open it, otherwise it's going to be a problem. They opened it, and the guy went away. But whilst he was going away, the army chap, someone who had seen them coming had rung the police. And the police came as well. Now, army and police in Uganda were totally different. Army had a lot of power. So there was a fight between the army and the police. And the army guy shot the gun to the police and they left. But the army guy was so incensed, he thought I had called the police. So he picked me up, put a gun to my head. And he says, did you call the police? I was terrified. I couldn't even say anything. You got a gun at your head. And I was trembling.
The voice didn't come out.
Yeah. And he saw that I was trembling so much, he just threw me down and said he walked away. That was my experience of what was happening. But
harrowing.
It was. So one of the things which always will stay with me, because and since then, thankfully, it has never happened.
Right. So what happened after that? You moved out from Uganda?
Yeah, I decided with my uncle that, look, this is no place for us now. It's becoming unsafe, because at that time the army was very strong, and they could take anyone's life, and they were not accountable to anyone.
Right.
So then we left Uganda, came back to Tanzania, went back to Mwanza where my parents were at that time, and then I decided to go to Mombasa with my maternal uncle, and I did my O-levels, finished my O-levels there.
In Mombasa? In
Mombasa, and I did my A-levels there as well.
So then, you decided to come to UK?
Yes. So, now, that was not my first choice. I mean, my choice to come to UK was there, but what happened was that there's a small story there. I wanted to do medicine, as all of us wanted to do medicine.
Everyone wanted to be a doctor.
I wanted to be a doctor. In fact, in my A-levels, physics, chemistry, biology, because I wanted to be a doctor. And I told Dad, I want to do medicine, I want to go to London. And Dad said, well, we haven't got the money, because he was a banker, and he just made ends meet at the end of each month. So he says, well, let's try the Africa Federation Education Scheme. So I applied for the Africa Federation Education Scheme. They approved my loan, but the loan was so meager, it wouldn't even pay for my living expenses, forget the tuition. Sorry, it wouldn't pay for my living expenses, forget the tuition fees.
Right.
And I saw that this is not going to be enough. I don't think I can go.
I think they could only afford that much.
Yes, the community wasn't as rich as it is today. And there were facilities. So I said, look, why don't I do accountancy? Because accountancy is one course. You just finance me for the first year.
Right.
Thereafter, I will earn and learn, because that's how accountancy was.
That's right, at the time, wasn't it?
Yes. So he agreed. And that's how I came into accountancy. And obviously, it was totally different, because I'd been doing science subjects up until then. And then suddenly I came here, I went to a place called Middlesbrough, which is no one there.
Up there,
Up there, cold like anything.
Yeah.
And I landed at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd taken a coach from Victoria Station to Middlesbrough, right in the middle of 3 o'clock in the morning. There's not a soul in sight. And there's
3 o'clock in the morning?
In the morning. And there's this Pakistani driver. He said, well, where do you want to go? I said, well, I'll come for the university. He says, okay, I'll take you there. He took me to the university, not the halls of residence. I go there, and the guy the security guy says, this is not where you stay at the halls, which is 2 miles away. So I took my suitcase and walked 2 miles to my halls of residence. That was my first encounter in this country. Coming from a sort of life where you are pampered, you've got servants to do everything.
They carry the bags and all that.
That's it.
So basically, this was what year?
This was 1977.
So 1977, you land in UK.
Yes.
And Middlesbrough,
Yes.
Middlesbrough University or college?
It was a polytechnic in those days.
Polytechnic,
Teesside Polytechnic.
That's right. There used to be polytechnic as well, So you studied your accountancy for 1 year there, and then presumably you got is it called articleship?
It used to be called training contract.
Training contract. You got a training contract?
Yeah.
Where did you get it?
In Watford.
Oh, in Watford.
Yes.
Right.
That's how I came to this part of the world.
Right. And you like this part of the world then?
Of course, because we've got our community here, and I think Well, funny thing is, in 1978, when I finished my education in Teesside and I came down, in Watford, you could hardly see a brown face. It was very much white-dominated area.
What year was that?
1978.
Really?
The only families there were the Jessa families.
Yeah.
And his nephew Kazim and Nazir Bhai's nephew Kazim and Muhammad.
Yeah.
And there was one other family. There were only Asians there.
Right.
So it was totally different to what it is now.
Yeah, you can see that, can't you?
Yes. Yeah.
So then you for how many years did you sort of did your traineeship?
4 years.
4 years.
4 years.
Now, what made you open your own? Is it Adams Moor House?
Yes. What happened was we are required to do 2 years post-qualification experience before we can start on our own.
Right.
And I was doing a post-qualification experience with a medium-sized firm, and I had been offered a partnership there.
Oh,
but 3 months
at that time?
Yes. 3 months before my term was coming to an end, I was going to be admitted to the partnership.
Right.
There were problems within the partnership, and my partnership was withdrawn.
Okay.
And I was so dispirited. And I said, well, if I join another firm, I'll probably spend another 2-3 years building up my pedigree, and then suddenly same thing could happen. So I'll probably be going from one firm to the other. Why don't I try
open your own?
Open my own. And as they say, rest is history.
That's right. and you have remained with this particular firm, which is your own.
Yes.
Till today.
Yes. Yes.
And you're working full time.
Yes.
Not retired.
Well, I don't think I can retire with the meager pension we get, so yeah, I'll continue for working for a while yet.
Good, because you want to keep your mind active. Now, if somebody wants to do accountancy at this time, now, would you advise them to do accountancy?
Very much so. Things have changed so much now. In the old days, when we started accountancy, there was only 1 or 2 routes you could take. Either you go into practice,
right,
or you could go into industry.
Right.
Now the field has opened so much with international finance, with corporate finance, etc. There's so many opportunities. And what surprises, I mean, when we qualified, I mean, I remember when I qualified, my first salary package was about £35 a week, hardly anything. Today's starting package is around 70 to 80,000 pounds a year.
Really?
Yes.
70, 80?
Yes. And they also poach people before they've completed their university education. They train them, and then these are the packages.
So it's lucrative?
Very much so, very much so. So I would very much advise.
So would you advise, in that case, a budding accountant, a chartered accountant, to open his own or work for someone?
Work for someone. I think opening your own practice is now no longer an option.
Right.
We are there
but
because
you have a good clientele base, presumably.
Yes, we have got, and that's also now going down because the whole economic structure has changed now. It's everything internet technology related.
Right.
So I don't think it is a thing which one should go into. But people who go into city, international finance, and all those, they're very good banking, international banking. Very good opportunities.
And I understand. Now I don't know how. It's maybe anecdotal. I don't know, but many youngsters from our community work in the city with good sort of baseline salary that they get.
They do. They're on very high packages, but the work they do is also very stressful.
Very stressful.
Very stressful, and I think they get burnt out within no time. So their earning capacity, and you'll find most of these people, they will be in the city for 4 years, probably 5 years, and they'll probably come out and do something of their own or probably sort of slow down. Because those 5 years are so intense that people usually get burnt out.
Right. So there is a downside to it.
Not really. If you have done your 5 years, you'll probably have accumulated quite a bit of
good
wealth.
Enough to, yes. Then start your own something.
Start your own, or you retire if you've done enough. I've seen so many youngsters who
many may be doing it. I don't know. Yeah.
A lot of youngsters who have come out of city and started their own business or sort of slowed down into some slower occupation. But
how do you see the future of UK?
I think. Depends. It's a very political question. It's a loaded question.
Well, you are a treasurer of Conservative.
I think we've got a very good future.
Right.
We are at the moment going through the trials and tribulations of living EU.
Right.
If we make it a success, I think we will be a very successful economy. It will take time, at least 5 years. I never thought leaving Europe would be an easy process. Europe, on the other hand, have got a lot of problems.
Right.
And I believe we are better off out of Europe. You know, as you can see, I was a Brexiteer. But if we are allowed to, for the Brexit to work, we could be a sort of tiger economy of the West.
I'm not sure about if we are allowed to, because I think Conservatives have been running the show for a long period of time.
No, but we have got splits within our own party.
Yeah,
Half of
so
the party
basically
is
that's the issue, yeah. Okay.
And also the Labour Party have said that they are going to work very closely with Europe,
right,
because their politics are very similar to the Labour politics, the European politics. So if that happens, of course, that will set us back. But if we are allowed to reap the rewards of Brexit, no shackles, etc., then yes, I think we could be another Singapore of the West.
Okay, Shabbirbhai, now I think I want to come to, you are now in UK. So when you arrived in the UK and settled here in this part of the world, part of UK, what was the community like? I mean, did we have a Jamaat by then?
Well,
must be 1977, so there must
1978. 1978, I came back here. We used to have our functions at Hammersmith.
At that time?
At that time. And I remember for the number of times I went to Hammersmith, I could never get in. I was always standing out because it was so crowded, because people from the south were going to Hammersmith.
Right.
People from
the
north.
It was a small sort of center.
Yes, it was very small, but it was a, what you call, meeting place for us. It was more social than anything else, because we couldn't get in to listen to what listen. So it was obviously an opportunity for us to meet each other.
Yeah.
So that's what I remember. Then after Hammersmith, soon we bought Stanmore.
Right, right.
And whilst the Stanmore Centre was being refurbished and rebuilt, we had our programs here in the tent, which we used to attend from time to time.
Where?
In the tent out here.
Oh yes, yes,
Marquee.
that's right, Marquee.
Yes. So yeah, we had a community 1978 around Harrow and Wembley. Very few people in Watford at that time.
Right.
Most of our people were concentrated in Harrow, Wembley, and that area. And then gradually, once Stanmore was acquired, people started moving
the
towards
expansion of the hujjat occurred, and then you see Watford carpenters and all that.
Oh yes, yeah.
Shabbir, so talk to us about what made you go into community life? I mean, in the sense, volunteering. Did you volunteer in any capacity initially, or did you straight away go into into the executive aspect of Jamaat?
There's a strange story. I was involved in community in a very small way back in Africa. My grandfather, by the way, was vice president of Bukoba Jamaat for years.
Oh, right, okay.
In those days, no one challenged these burzouks. You know, they stayed in that position for life. You know, the president was there for life. My vice president.
And people were happy.
They were happy. No one challenged them.
Yeah.
So he was vice president for a long time. My father was secretary of Jamaat in Bukoba, then in Mwanza when he was in Mwanza,
Right,
etc.
yeah.
When he was in Mwanza, I became secretary of the youth wing of the Jamaat.
Okay.
And at one time, my father was a secretary, I was a secretary of the youth wing,
Right.
and we had differences of opinion.
Okay.
And I didn't know what to do, so at home, before we had a meeting, I told Dad that, Dad, I do not agree with you guys on this and this issue. And he said something which is quite important, stayed with me for. He says, I'm your father at home. When you go in the official capacity, I'm not your father. You do what you think is best, and I'll do what I think is best.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and so when we went there, they presented their arguments, I presented my arguments. Of course, they won the day, but it taught me...
It was all amicable.
Amicable, yes. Yeah. But it taught me a thing that, you have relationships, but they stay at home. When you are in an official capacity, you do officially what is good for the community.
Did you feel that that particular advice and how you conducted yourself after that outside the home actually stayed with you even now, that when you are in the official capacity as a president or vice president or as a member of the Jamaat, you'll stand up and speak your mind?
Very much so. I mean, sometimes people think I'm a rebel without a cause, but I think I'm a rebel with a cause.
What is the cause in that case?
Well, that cause, there are different causes. When you're in Jamaat politics, there are always causes you can fight for.
Right.
But I think in my younger days, I was quite vocal, and I used to speak my mind, which now I sort of calm down more as I grow older. I say, well, you can say the same things. Like in Gujarati, we say, Marimache atau Marbapni Bairi. So I've decided I've learned how to say.
You have decided to say mother.
Yeah.
Much.
Okay.
Okay, coming back to the community, okay, that sparked in East Africa, but what led you to community life here?
Okay, what happened, I was, after my education, I started my practice. I was very busy building my practice. And one of my clients was Dr. Anwadanji, another dentist. And one afternoon he called me and he said, Shabbir, are you free this evening? I said, yeah. I thought he had a business proposition. He says, well, can you be prepared at 6 o'clock? I will come and pick you up. So when they came to pick me up, in the car was Marhum Liaquat Asaria, Kasim Bhai, and Anwar. He said, we are going to Milton Keynes. Why Milton Keynes? What's happening? I said, you just wait. When we went to Milton Keynes, we met Hassan Bhai Walji there. Apparently, there was a vacancy for Secretary General of COAGE, and no one was willing to take that position. They wanted to force me to take that position.
Yeah, all right, okay.
So we had a long dinner. I think it's a 3-hour dinner. The most expensive prawns I've eaten, because they convinced me at the end. That
Did they?
Yeah. And then
what was the role of Hassan Walji there then?
He was the Secretary of World Federation.
Right. Okay.
And it was in his interest to make sure that COAGE continues, although at that time, COAGE was a very much a loose body. We didn't have a constitution. We had a revolving presidency. Every 6 months a president changed.
Right.
And there wasn't much the COAGE did at that time. So, but it served the sort of rest of the world Jamaats to say that there is also COAGE in Europe. Albeit, you probably remember that at that time, each European Jamaat had direct membership of World Federation.
Absolutely
right.
We
were not through COAGE.
Absolutely right.
So,
and, but we had a COAGE and we had a direct membership.
Yes.
And what was the function of the COAGE?
No one knows.
But there was a COAGE.
I remember every meeting we had, the one item on the agenda was Alim's contract. And Alim's contract.
Contract.
Yeah, so we should have a uniform contract for Alims.
Yeah.
And for the 2 years I was Secretary General, every meeting there was Alim's contract. It never got approved. And then I sort of gave up. But I gave up after I think we formed the Constitution. You were there as President of Essex, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah, and we had a...
No, Mohammed Lalji was there,
But you were involved somehow.
I was involved. I was in the... at that time, I was involved as chairman of the... we had education subcommittee.
Okay.
I was chairman. And of course, at that time, because I was a member of London Jamaat, I was speaking on behalf of London Jamaat as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I remember that was, if you remember, it was, we sat there in Ladies' Hall for nearly 18 hours. We started at 10 o'clock one morning. We didn't finish till about 4 or 5 o'clock the next morning.
Right.
To get that European Constitution done.
I think it was under Kasim Bhai Manji's presidency.
He was the president, I was the secretary.
It's an interesting discussion we can have. I mean, basically, retrospectively now, European Jamaats had a direct membership with the World Federation. And so they had a direct voice. But what was the pressure for all of us to then form a council? What was the rationale behind it?
The rationale was I think the Africa Federation. They saw the European Jamaats having undue influence on the working of the World Federation. Because if you took the voting rights of the individual Jamaats, they came to something like 40%. And the rest of them, 60%, was distributed around the world. And so, and I think...
and we acted as a bloc, didn't we?
Yes, we acted as a bloc. And I think Mullah was very clever. He used to call upon European Jamaats when he needed us. And so that was the reason why. I think it was the pressure from the international community to say that this is an anomaly in the structure.
But Shabbirbhai, reflecting, although we concentrated on the mathematics of the voting and all that within the World Federation Forum, but COAGE itself could have been a very solid, strong regional federation looking after its member Jamaat in its own right, rather than being led to the World Federation as a regional body. We should have evolved into a very strong regional body. What do you think?
I think you're very right. I think we should have. But there have always been sort of influences from the World Federation to sort of put that idea to rest. The reason being, most of the work which COAGE would ideally do is being done by World Federation.
That was a perception.
Perception. It's there now. I mean, if you look at, first of all, our office is based in same place as London Jamaat, World Federation offices. And so what World Federation does is basically what European Council would do. And so this was a common complaint of successive COAGE leaders to say that we cannot do anything if World Federation is doing whatever we would like to do. We don't have our own ijaza, we cannot collect our funds. So, we are just a superfluous body. You give us the money and we spend it, and that's basically what's happening.
But even still today, COAGE status remains the same still, would you say?
I haven't been involved very closely with COAGE recently, but yes, I would think so, because I can't see COAGE doing anything else apart from dispersing money given by World Federation. And as it happens, I think it's the same with NASIMCO, because NASIMCO is just dispersing at the moment. Money is given by World Federation.
Yeah. Although we have to get the facts correct, obviously. I mean, that's the perception that you're having, but I think we need to get into the facts. So, okay, so now you became a Secretary General of a loose body.
Yes.
So what was your role then?
Well, we used to have meetings every 3 months. I can't remember how frequently we had meetings. We had lots of nice samosas and sort of nastas.
But did we achieve anything?
No, I don't think we achieved anything. In fact, it was quite heartbreaking to see this. We couldn't even meet quorum at some of the meetings.
Really?
And then when the time for the election came, I told KSIMC, who was the president at the time, I said, KSIMC, I'm not willing to be a Secretary General of an organization which hardly does anything. We prepare all the papers and people hardly turn up. So there's no respect, there's no enthusiasm for this body. So what are we doing it for? And he agreed with me. And so we decided, okay, fine, we are going to stand down, let someone else take.
What about the Constitution, by the way?
That was afterwards. No,
afterwards?
No, we didn't stand down. We decided to stand down. Then we had another meeting in Milton Keynes, a standby. We had a meeting going to right 3 o'clock in the morning. He tried to pursue this. No. We are going to, a lot of things were discussed, and whatever we asked for, he said, yes, we will do this, we'll do that, etc. So we stayed in office for another 2 years.
But decided to go for Constitution this time?
That's right.
Formal Constitution.
Formal Constitution. So then the next 2 years were spent in visiting all the Jamaats, trying to encourage them to join council. And the biggest stumbling block was every Jamaat we went to, so why would we join COAGE when World Federation is doing, it's so easy for us. I mean, if we come to you, you have to go to World Federation to do something. Here we got direct access. So even though we had the Constitution, which you and I were there at that meeting, we adopted the Constitution, the actual change did not happen until 2003. And that was the Dubai conference.
All right, yeah.
That's when
At that time, I think the meeting of the minds occurred.
Yes, and that's when the European Jamaats gave up their direct membership, and then they became member of COAGE.
Because I think there was a pressure then from other regional federations that if we are going to, then let's become, all of us become a part of welfare as regional federation. So I want to now come to your time as vice president first of Hujjat Jamaat.
Okay.
Now, what period was that?
That was 2003 to 2007.
What was the state of the community like when you became a vice president? And what was your role in that?
Okay. Well, let me tell you something about running London Jamaat. The day-to-day activities of the Jamaat will continue irrespective of whether you have an executive committee or not.
Why is that?
Because we've got so dedicated volunteers.
Okay, right.
They will do your daily majlises, they'll do your daily, diyas and everything. It will run. You needed someone to sort of formulate policies as to where the Jamaat is going, etc., etc. Direction. And so when I came, there's an interesting thing. When I was proposed to be the vice president, KSIMC said, you'd be my vice president because we had worked in COAGE.
Right.
But only few people knew me because only people who were in COAGE and JIBA knew me. The rest of the people didn't. So when he proposed my name, someone shouted, "Who is he?" So I had to stand up so they could recognize who I was. So that's how and then at the handover from the previous people, there were no notes or anything as to where things are, etc. Like I said, things that just happen. The only thing...
A big Jamaat like that,
no
in
handover
2000 and what did you say?
2003.
2003, biggest Jamaat did not have this handover process?
No.
Okay.
The only handover was a key to the safe.
Right.
So next day after we took over, I took the key, went to the safe, and there were two things in the safe. One was a little box which has collection from the previous mudlis or something, which is to be banked, which is probably under 200 pounds in it, and saffron.
And?
Saffron.
Saffron.
So that's saffron unit.
Ah.
Now, I'm not sure why that was kept at lock and key. That was the state of the committee.
So that's what you saw?
Yes.
Right.
So it was hilarious at the time, but that was the state of the community, London Jamaat at the moment. But the daily functions took place, no problem.
Very efficiently.
Very efficiently, there was no problem.
And it is a very efficient Jamaat in that sense.
Oh yes, I mean, only last weekend I was attending a wedding here. And what I was impressed with, that they were serving 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Everyone was served within 10 minutes. So serve 1,000 people within 10 minutes.
Which is organization, isn't it?
Exactly. So you can't fault volunteers.
And month of Ramadan, Muharram, Juma, I mean,
volunteers,
wonderful.
Amazing.
Yeah. So 4 years, what did you do as a vice president?
4 years we had, I started introducing...
Did you do any project for Hujjat Jamaat?
We
completed it?
No, we looked at quite a few properties because we knew at that time that this center was bursting at the seams.
Right.
We looked at quite a few properties to buy, and none of them were successful. I remember one which was towards the end of our term, which was the Watford College, which was a £26 million project. There will be 26 million pounds, 26. 26, okay. Which was quite a substantial sum. And what I decided, I told Qasim, is, look, we can't put Stanmore to risk if we buy it under Hujjat Jamaat.
Right.
If things go pear-shaped, then our center will be at risk. So we formed a company. And I said, Qasim, this company is going to bid for this project. Right. If anything goes pear-shaped, we'll just close the company and walk away. At least the Jamaat is safe. We're none of our... Okay. But obviously we didn't win the bid. So that was one project. I think most of our time was spent on introducing systems and financial control. We centralized the systems, a lot of financial control. And obviously there are some other issues which took a lot of our time. Issues
of immense importance or petty issues?
I think there was one important issue. Well, I thought at the time it was a very important issue, but I think now looking in the scheme of things, perhaps we gave it too much importance. And that was a loss of some money from the Jamaat, which was defrauded from the Jamaat by a lady and sort of taken out £25,000.
All right.
But at the time it seemed very big, because prior to that, I never ever thought that anyone would have guts or heart to take money from Imam's center, because that's the belief we have.
Yeah.
And that when I saw this, I was in a state of shock that someone had done that. But anyway, that's all water under the bridge. We never got that money back. But yeah, that did take a lot of our time. In fact, there was an extraordinary general meeting held by certain members who had called for the meeting to discuss this issue. So that's how important it was for the community at that stage. But now looking at things, in the scheme of things, maybe we placed too much of emphasis.
The 4 years of vice president prepared you to become the leader of the community now.
I think so.
You became a president.
I think so.
So in your time as a president, what did you have in mind? That you are now a president, you must have had something in mind, like I'm going to take this community somewhere. And whether it was fulfilled or whether it was difficult, just share with us your thought process.
Okay. The most important thing when I came into office was, at the time, I don't know whether you recall, but London Jamaat was in doldrums. The whole previous committee had resigned.
Oh, I don't recall that.
Yes.
I wasn't,
and I think it stemmed from an issue on safeguarding, you might remember briefly.
Oh, yeah, that's right, I remember now.
So that safeguarding issue led to the whole committee resigning.
Okay.
So when I came in, I had to steady the ship, which we did.
All right. It was in a turmoil.
It was in a turmoil, and then I had lots of meetings with safeguarding officers at Harrow Council, tried to satisfy them that, these things are not endemic in our community, etc. So a lot of time was spent on safeguarding and all those things. And then the biggest thing which we wanted to do was to acquire a center. And that is one of my biggest regrets, that we found a center which I thought was very apt for our requirements.
Where was that?
Which was the Borehamwood property.
Right. Yeah.
It had 1,100 graves, 800 car parking spaces, and 50,000 square feet of hall, which is more than what we have here.
And how much was it going for?
It was going for 9.5 million, but the best part of it was we were not going to pay a single penny until they handed the keys to a complete project to us. So there was no risk involved.
Oh.
It was a no-brainer, and this came in the last few months of my presidency. Mm-hmm. And my regret is that despite all the assurances which the incoming committee gave us that you will continue with the project, it never materialized.
So that was your sadness there.
That is my sadness. In fact, if we had got that today, even as a graveyard, it would have been worth 3 times what it was worth then.
Right.
Forget the whole, etc. But anyway, that's water under the bridge. We now have Harefield. We have to support whatever we...
That's right. Yeah, I think we have to move on now.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest regret then?
Yes. Yeah,
right.
That was quite a big
So
regret.
tell me, I mean, as a vice president and president, functioning as a president now, how do you see the maturity of our community with regards to differences of opinion, differences of issues? How do you see? Do you see that that those things get resolved in an amicable way, or do you think that we then divide as a community?
Yeah.
As a president now.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I think
president.
looking at it philosophically, I think we are probably politically, as a community, slightly immature in the sense that we want to be democratic. We have our elections, etc., but we do not allow democracy to see the function through our community. Now, if you see throughout our community, even a small Jamaat of 3 families, there is a dispute. And the dispute is that we elect our elected representatives, whoever it is, but then we do not allow them to carry out their agenda because we then...
Is this your experience?
My experience and experience of all the other Jamaats I've looked at.
Right.
Because, see, look at the secular side of things. When Mrs. Thatcher was first elected as Prime Minister, the majority of the people didn't vote for her. It was the minority who voted for her. Her policies were very controversial, but the majority had to accept it because we had elected her under the rules which were existing there. So that is what is lacking in our Jamaat politics at all levels, taking it from the Jamaat right up to the World Federation, that we have a system whereby we elect the president and the committee, etc. They come with their own agenda, but we do not allow that agenda to function, and then we always have dispute. We are in a dispute, and that's where the problem is.
Does that mean that it retards the development of the community?
I think it does, because if you do not allow, you see, there are 2 things here. Democracy is there to hold the executive to account. But how can you hold the executive to account when you haven't allowed the executive to carry out their function? Right? That's the problem. So, for example, if you take World Federation today, I'm not in World Federation. I don't even attend their meetings since 2010. I think that was the last meeting you and I attended together. But
that was in Dar es Salaam, I think.
Yes, exactly. Since then, I mean, if you look at World Federation, the Executive Council is supposed to hold hold the executive, the officers, to account. But it doesn't happen that way. Now, if you do not hold the executive to account, there's no point in having a democracy. Because democracy, the function is that you elect someone and then they are allowed to carry out their agenda. And if they don't perform well, you hold them to account. In a 3 years' time, 4 years' time, 2 years' time with the elections, you boot them out. That's the process of democracy. But I think we are politically mature in the sense that once you have elected someone, they come with their program, but they are not allowed to do that. So if, for example, I was elected as a president, I came with my own agenda. I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying it happened with me, but if I did not have the free hand to carry out my agenda, and then in 2 years' time you come and say, you didn't do this, I have a valid excuse. I didn't do it because you didn't give me the time and space for me to carry out my agenda. If you had allowed that, you can hold me to account. You didn't do this. And I said, yep, I tried, I didn't do it. If you think I'm not worthy of this position, put me out. But
nevertheless, Shabbir, I mean, the democracy does allow, with mistakes and sometimes our shortcomings, to move forward. And then as a community, we have accepted the fact that, okay, we have these shortcomings, but we do move forward. And I think that we remained and retained the spirit of the community in the process, and hoping that we will learn from our weaknesses, and as we move forward, we become stronger in making sure that if we elect our leaders, then we must give them the backing that they require. Wouldn't you say that? I think we should be, that is a positiveness of a community which has now survived for almost 160 to 70 years as a community, in spite of the fact that we don't have our own army, we don't have a land, but as a community, in the global sense of the, in the global world, as a small community, we have survived because we have allowed ourselves, of course, this privilege sometimes of not being a mature community, as you put it, but otherwise we have moved forward and retained our community spirit. Yeah, we
have, and mistakes are allowed. No one is masum. So apart from our imams, no one is masum. So obviously everyone makes mistakes, and the community is very magnanimous in accepting mistakes made by people. However, if a mistake is not a mistake, if you learn from it, but if the mistake keeps on repeating, then of course it's hampering the growth of the community. We keep on doing the same mistakes again. Now let me just bring you, I mean, you were involved in this 2009 elections of World Federation. You and I know that the elections were not done properly, and that's why we put up a strong resistance.
But then the conference decided whatever it did.
The resolution the conference in Dar es Salaam did was totally ultra-virus. There was no provision in the constitution to say that you should hold another election in 12 months' time. Nevertheless, we did it.
But there was another valid interpretation associated with that. So
which was?
Which was the fact that the conference decided on a resolution and approved it.
Yeah, but you see...
But if it was against the constitution, which you are saying, that was a matter of debate.
Yeah, there was no constitutional provision to do that, so we did that anyway. But we should have learned the mistake. We should have learned from the mistake of what happened then. But then same thing has now repeated, that because things were not right then, we changed the constitution. Now, that's also another problem. We are now changing constitution regularly to fit certain circumstances. Rather than do a constitution which fits the community, we change and chop and change constitution to fit a certain circumstance. Now at that time, we had a problem with electorate on the subcontinent, so you change the voting structure, fine. We are now here, we have got a constitution, and we have the same problem that some of the elements of the constitution have not been followed. So we can't go on moving from one crisis to another crisis just because, our constitution either is silent on it or something which is not right. And we spend so much time on constitution. I mean, if I look at it, almost every Jamaat has spent timeless hours and money to make constitutions. But if there is no accountability, then what's the point of having a constitution? Constitution is there for you to follow, and if someone doesn't follow the provisions of constitution, there should be some accountability. This is the remedy. This should be done. Our constitutions do not allow that remedy. There's no remedy. So we breach, I mean, all Jamaats, I'm not just saying World Federation, all Jamaats breach constitution on a regular basis, and there's no accountability. What that does, the community will move. Like I said, London Jamaat will function without the EC here. However, the progress in the community is stifled. We do not have progress. If you compare the progress which we have made in this country since coming here compared to, let's say, for instance, the Smiley community or the Hindu community, we haven't progressed as much.
Yeah, I mean, while I accept your evaluation, I would not accept the fact that those other communities did not go through the period of what we are going through in a similar way, that we have got a constitution, that there are problems associated with interpretation of it. Nevertheless, we still remain within the constitutional bounds and still progress in a move forward, but lessons that needs to be learned should be and ought to be learned. And I think that this is where we as a community will have to do that. Because if we don't learn from the past mistakes,
Absolutely.
You're right,
yeah.
past mistakes, then we make the same mistakes again. But the strength of this community is that, okay, we have gone through a period of turmoil maybe, but we do come out of it sitting together and working through the process, no matter how difficult it is, to then eventually end up as a community still united, but learning some lessons and still have to learn more lessons from that. So what I'm trying to say is that I think to dismiss the community that, look, we don't allow this or we don't allow that, we have some weaknesses, but we do move forward together with that weaknesses and hopefully understanding those weaknesses and making those weaknesses into strength as we move along. And I feel that is how we have survived for 160 years. If we hadn't been doing that, we haven't been learning, we would have collapsed by now. By now, we would not have survived as a community. I think that's the point.
Yeah, I think you make valid observations. However, you say move along. I think we have stopped moving along now. I mean, look at London Jamaat now. How many centers do we have in London? We are no longer a united community that we were a few years back. Stanmore is our center. Today, you've got several of the centers. There is Salam Center coming up once it's up and running.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the Hujjat Jamaat is not making any progress. So,
what is progress?
Well, absolutely right. So the progress that the community grassroots feels that they want to make, if the Hujjat Jamaat is abiding by those wishes, then it's making a progress. Because then the grassroots will obviously choose another type of leadership to move them along. So we cannot say that because there are 9 other centers around Stanmore that we are not making progress. We are making progress. We have just bought airfield. That's a progress. Now, obviously there are differences of opinion, Shabbir, but at least we have, as a community, made a decision, and that's progress.
Okay.
Now, I think I want to move forward, because otherwise
we could go into the argument.
No, yeah. So now, I think we have had enough of this discussion, and I think you have obviously shown the concerns as a past leader of the community, where, for example, the community's weaknesses are. Although there could be differences of opinion, you may be reading it perhaps more very negatively, but there may be people who may be reading it a bit more positively in many ways. So, but then, obviously, this is interview with you.
Yes, no, it's different people have different perspectives.
Different opinion. But I think that our community has got a huge positivity within it that allows us to have remained as a community despite and in spite of many challenges that we've gone through, both at Jamaat level, at regional federation level, at world federation level. Nevertheless, we are positive in making an impact at the community level. Okay. Lastly, now, Shabbir, what would be your advice? How do you see the future challenge, apart from the structural challenge that you have given and, of course, the functional challenge? What are the challenges outside the community that awaits us as a past leader of the community that we should be aware of it?
Oh, that's a very loaded question, Sitanbhai. A lot
but
of
as
challenges.
A past president, you should be aware of it.
Yeah, I think we have got a lot of challenges, especially in the West. Obviously, I haven't lived in East Africa for a long time now, so I wouldn't know what challenges face them. I'm sure they've got their own challenges. But I think challenges facing our community here, One of them is education. At the moment, we are faced with this LGBTQ plus campaign.
Right.
I don't think we are, for whatever little I know, I don't think we're equipped to deal with that. In fact, I mean, I've heard of cases where 4- and 5-year-old children come from school and say that our teacher has said it's okay to have 2 dads and 2 mums. How do you counter that? How do you do that within the Islamic Aqidah, etc.? That's a challenge. And I think MCE, part of World Federation, it looks at the whole world sort of madrasa structure. There should be some specific structures to deal with individual geographical areas, because the challenges in East Africa and India are different to challenges which we face here. So I feel that this also needs to be looked at.
I think to be fair to them, Shabbirbhai, World Federation in the last conference are aware of this challenge, and I think that they've set up a forum now to make sure that they try to overcome this. This challenge. They are aware of it now, and they've put it into their system. And these challenges need to be sorted out.
Because, as I said, I haven't attended any World Federation conferences recently. In fact, I don't get invitations anymore.
Oh, yeah. Don't you?
No, I don't. So yeah. I haven't attended. But anyway, if it's done, then that's very good. That's a good move in the right direction. The challenge is relating to the seniors of our community.
Right.
Our seniors are in desperate situation, living at home, probably no one to care for, etc. We desperately need sheltered accommodation for them, whether it's done through Council of European Jamaats or done through World Federation, etc. We are a rich community now. I mean, I've heard of instances where some of our people are going to Hindu homes where the diet is not accepted according to our requirements. We should have. I mean, a lot of our brothers are in residential and nursing home businesses. I mean, we should pool the resources and make sure that we have something for our seniors. So when you and I retire, then we can be neighbors in sheltered accommodation to get this type of discussions more regularly.
Okay.
But I think that's
so what you're saying is that we should now introduce our own sort of community homes.
It's long overdue. I think London Jamaat has looked at it several times, and at each occasion, I think we have hit stumbling block in financing.
Right.
But I think there are novel ways of financing, and I think we should look at the youngsters, the seniors. The youngsters are doing exceedingly well. They've got a very, fledged structure both within the World Federation and the London Jamaat. As far as other challenges are concerned, I think we need to, like your first question as to whether we should be involved in secular politics, I think we have to encourage people to get into secular politics just to maintain our interests as far as secular politics are concerned. We have become
influence.
Yeah. We have become very insular, and I think we need to now go out and sort of encourage people to go out. Right. There's no harm in sort of going out and joining secular organization, as long as your faith is strong. And you can make a difference. Right. And we have to be good citizens of this country for the host community to see that we are not all extremists and terrorists. And we can. I mean, I think our community amongst Muslims is one of the most dynamic and forward-thinking community. So we can present a good image of ourselves as long as we go out and don't remain insular. So there are the challenges. Of course, then we've got the economic challenge. A lot of our people are going through cost of living crisis. That's a sort of short-term challenge we have, how to overcome that. The thing is that, we have facilities in this country. We've got a very strong social security system, but a lot of our people do not know what they can claim for, etc. So there's no reason why someone should suffer, provided they knew how to get benefits, etc. Now, the Hindus have got a very good system. They've got a center called Sangeet Center, something in Edgware. And anyone
What's that center called?
Sangat Center or Sangeet Center.
And they give advice?
Yes, they've got solicitors there. And anyone, free advice, they signpost. They don't give any money, but they signpost you. You've got this problem Okay, this is what you do, this is what you do, we'll do it for you,
Right.
etc. Something like that would be very useful for the community.
So that can be done for the seniors.
If we can be done
for the community as a whole.
For community as a whole, yes. And youngsters have got problems. I mean, a lot of our youngsters have got mental problems. We also have, not to a very large extent, I'm pleased to say, but there is a little problem with the drink and drugs amongst the youth of our community. I think we need proper education on that as to whether that is why they are doing it and how we can stop them from going astray that way. These are the challenges which we face.
Right. So these are in your opinion, these are the challenges that needs to be overcome by the community. Okay. Well, I think with those challenges, our time is up, Shabbir.
It's went very quickly.
Very quickly, yeah. And so, thank you very much for coming and sharing your thought processes. Yeah. Very candidly, I have to say.
Well, I'll probably get into trouble for that, but there you are.
No, I don't.
I speak my mind.
Yeah, but no, I think people will understand that you've spoken your mind.
Yeah.
So for the community as a whole, I'm sure these candid thoughts of Shabbirbhai are sort of for reflective considerations for all our listeners. With these thoughts, we bid farewell to all of you till next time. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Ameen.
Thank you.
Thank you.